obviously the big news coming out of week 9, we can't not discuss it. LSU does fire Brian Kelly following the embarrassing loss to Texas A&M, where fans were exiting Death Valley in the third quarter and chants of "Fire Kelly" rung out as he left the field. The writing seemed to be on the wall, a 49-25 loss. But we got to talk about the decision here, because obviously you have talked, and I think you hit the nail on the head last week when we talked about this. These buyout structures are ridiculous. Like, it is seriously staggering what money is being given to coaches who are not reaching expectations. In what other job or industry are you rewarded for not living up to what you were hired to do? It's very odd. $50+ million buyout for Brian Kelly. It's the second most ever paid to a head coach in their firing, only behind Jimbo Fisher, whose was $76.8 million when he was let go from Texas A&M. The ironic piece of it that has been widely talked about the past couple of days is that both of those were done by the same athletic director in Scott Woodward. He was at Texas A&M during that, and now same thing happens in Baton Rouge, and you are just willing to fork out an exorbitant amount of money to get these guys out. Why? What made you so certain about them to put that contract together to begin with? That's what I get confused by. But it was his fourth year. He was off to a 5-3 record this season, and that wasn't going to cut it. We've also talked about that. This team expected a championship, and you look at the lineage before him, Coach O, Les Miles, they all had titles. Like, it is the expectation in Baton Rouge. You add Brian Kelly's pedigree, you add the fact that you had the number 1 ranked transfer portal class, you spent $20 million on this roster, and you're losing games this way, and your team looks this ill prepared for games. And I think the biggest kicker here, everyone's like, you look at his record, there are so many current coaches with worse records than him. I mean, Hugh Freeze being one of them, and it's very true. Why would they fire him with such a big buyout? It didn't just come down to wins and losses. It came down to the fact that Brian Kelly had nothing to do with Louisiana State University. Brian Kelly barely had anything to do with his own players and staff. When something is going wrong in a game and the broadcast shows your head coach, and every single time he has his headset off and he is ripping into another coach or player in a disrespectful, condescending way, there is no accountability. There is no attempt to keep this thing intact. And now the floodgates have freaking opened, and there are stories galore about Brian Kelly not participating in anything to do with the players or culture at LSU. As earth-shattering as that amount of money is, and is kind of wild as it is looking at, a record that wasn't terrible, I still believe this was the right decision for LSU.
Well, LSU saw the writing on the wall because you start to lose your culture, right?
It was lost.
Anytime your culture starts to take a hit and it starts to get beat down, is no coming back from that. And, I think he had lost the locker room. I think he lost some of his coaches on the staff, and he definitely had lost the fan base. And my thing with the AD that they gave both of these guys the ridiculous amount of buyouts, what is he getting?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what is he getting on the back end? Because it just doesn't make sense to me for people to allow these buyouts for coaches this high. You get rewarded for not doing what you was hired to do.
Right.
I've never known a job that rewards you for not doing what you're supposed to do. And you don't just get rewarded a little bit. You get rewarded your entire contract. Yeah. Brian Kelly signed a 10-year contract over $100 million at LSU. He gets paid $100 million for 4 years of work and a 10-year contract. And yes, it makes me upset because it's NFL players and other players, and you complain about the college kids getting paid. What about these coaches? They're getting ridiculous amounts of money, and they're getting paid, but then you complain about paying the college kids. And at the end of the day, you get 4 years to play in college, or you make it to the NFL. You may play 1 year, 2 years, 10, 15, who knows? But at the end of the day, you get cut, fired, or whatever. That's it. You don't get no reward of achieving. When you sign a contract, you have to achieve what's in that contract to get all of it. There is incentives in your contract. And if you don't hit those incentives, then you don't make that money. So my thing is, it's okay for coaches to make good amount of salaries, but some of that needs to be incentivized, where you need to have a base salary, and then once you get to 8 games, any game that you win after 8 games, you start adding money to every game that you win.
Yeah.
Increases another bonus of money. And then if you make the playoffs and every playoff win, you make it to the championship win. Like, it needs to be some incentives in these contracts for these guys to be able to hit, instead of like just signing a contract. If I go off and I sign a contract as a college head coach, if I don't have it in my heart to have a desire to get it out my team and to want to make that place a better place than what I found it and try to go compete for a championship
Right.
at all costs, then I'm basically just stealing money, because that's what I signed up for, was just to get the check then at that
Yeah.
point. Because whether you fire me, whether I win, lose, or draw, guess what? You still pay me my whole contract.
Mhm.
So what's the incentive to push the coach to want to get over the edge? Like, you look at a Kirby Smart. Kirby's always going hard. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Buys $100-some million, but Georgia knows he's gonna bust his tail to make sure that they're not in that situation.
Exactly.
When Nick Saban was getting paid a whole bunch of money, Nick Saban was at the office all the time, making sure he's putting in his work to do what he got to do to make sure that Alabama was competing at a high level,
And
right?
they produced.
And they produced. So they knew they wasn't going to ever get to that.
Yeah.
So Brian Kelly never won a championship before he came to LSU.
Exactly.
That kind of contract. Jimbo Fisher, when he was at Florida State, yes, he won a championship, but it was on the decline that he put the university in a situation that they had to let him go, and they had to dig themselves out of a hole, and you reward him with $100 million contract
Yep.
at A&M. So I don't understand it. The only coach I feel like that shouldn't have got fired in that situation was Franklin, because he
Same.
was in the semifinals last year. Then all of a sudden they fire him this year. He's the only one I think that shouldn't have been fired, because he didn't lose the culture.
No.
But I wonder if the playoffs, because we've expanded the playoffs, does that have a lot to do with pressure now being put on coaches to say, if you're LSU, why are you not in top 12?
Yeah.
If you're Auburn, why you're not in top 12? If you're Tennessee, why you're not in top 12? If you're, all these different schools that you expect to compete, right?
Yeah.
The recruiting class to be in the top 12, the playoffs being expanded makes you say, oh, why aren't these guys finishing in the top 12? Well, in the SEC, they can only take 4 schools, right?
Right.
They say they only take 4. So it's not that you got to finish in top 12. You got to finish in top 4 in your conference.
Right.
Got to be your first thought, is how I get to the top 4 in my conference and make it to the championship game. So something's got to be done. These schools have got to hire some business people or somebody that understand these contracts and everything, and not let these agents, some of the agents, just take advantage of the schools. Like, that is ridiculous.
No
amount
kidding.
to pay that much money. I don't want to hear any complaints about paying players. I was just like,
Right.
that much money to go home. Like I don't want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
No, so true.
it's unfair, because you reward people. You always tell people in life, you work hard, you earn what you get. In this situation, how are you earning what you're getting?
You're not.
Like, just because I put my ink on the paper, regardless of what I do or how much effort I put in it, I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no incentive for you to have to do something. That's why these contracts need to be incentivized based on wins, based on losses, and your buyout should be able to negotiate it based on what you've done from the university at the time that you was there coaching.
I totally agree.
That's what needs to be done.
I agree. And yeah, to your point, I think the expanded playoff has given every fan base, and especially programs that have reached the pinnacle prior to the expansion, the belief that they should be in the conversation. There's 12. Like, of course we're going to be there. And then when you realize you're not, there's less patience and more frustration than the BCS era, even a 4-team playoff, because that you maybe even subconsciously gave a little bit more grace to the coaching staff and team. Like, okay, well, we weren't beating Ohio State, Bama, Georgia, and Oregon. You know what I mean? So I do think that there's a correlation, because 10 coaches being fired before November is the most in the FBS era. We have never seen this much of a turnover. And here's the thing. It's about to have such a ripple effect, because now, and this is a perfect way to segue into this conversation, who is LSU targeting? Because There is no doubt about it. It is championship or bust in Baton Rouge. Now, again, I don't think that's the only reason they pulled the plug. All of the reports said that the meeting on Sunday was going in to discuss staff, and obviously a bunch of firings were going to happen, but that the meeting, quote, didn't go very well. There was a contentious lack of stability in Baton Rouge since Brian Kelly got there. I think who he is also got him fired, or who he was in Baton Rouge, because I don't think it was the best version of himself. I really don't. And I've covered a lot of coaches. You can tell a difference when coaches are truly immersed in their players and in the place, and they still believe in being players coaches and being mentors and stuff. He couldn't say many things about their personal stories. Like he didn't concern himself with it. It was all X's and O's and ball. But then when the play on the field was bad, it was someone else's fault. So there was just that one, I think, goes beyond his record and his ability or lack of to produce championships. But if you're going to take that buyout and do this right now, heading into week 10, you know who you want. And you are not, I think John Summerall is going to be a fantastic coach. I don't think that's what LSU is setting out to do. I don't think LSU is setting out to give a up-and-comer their big shot. I think they are going to get a guaranteed championship coach. And I'm not sure how you do that for much less than what you just gave Brian Kelly. So, it just continues to add to that. But obviously, the first name that is being brought up is Lane Kiffin. And I'm
always first, right?
He's always first. He's first in Gainesville right now. I mean, all the memes of people being like, how is Lane Kiffin coaching 4 teams next year is so true, because everyone thinks he's going to their program. And all the while, he may really feel like he needs to stay in Oxford for his family. I have no idea. If you're LSU, though, take away some of those intangibles, because we obviously can't know truly what's on someone's heart as far as where they want to live for their family. Who do you see as home run hire in Baton Rouge? Y'all really need to try and go get this guy.
Ooh, man, home run hire. See, you had to be careful in the whole process, right? Somebody came out and said anything about, said something about Sarkisian, right? Leaving Texas for the pro.
Oh.
So when you think about those things, to me, that's the agent doing a great job, right? Agents putting stuff out there, saying it's somebody else.
Yeah.
Why? Because they want to drive the price up for their candidate, right? They want to make Texas come back to Sarkisian and say, hey, we're going to give you a raise, or, the threat is out there, so let's give him a raise. That happened with Auburn a couple of years ago, and they did that with Gus Malzahn. Remember, they gave Gus a 7-year extension when Arkansas was pulling, Arkansas was about to pull Gus from Auburn, and it made Auburn go ahead and say, okay, Gus, let's lock you up. So it just happened in Indiana with Cutnetti. So I don't know if it's being said. We know that Lane.
With who? Who'd you just say?
It ain't Cutnetti.
Oh my gosh. I literally was like, did he just say Cousin Eddie? What the frick, Jason? How do you call on radio? I need to know. Kurt Signetti.
Oh, Signetti. Oh, there you go. Kurt Signetti.
You combined his first and his last. Anyway, proceed.
I call him Cousin Eddie. Well, Cousin Eddie got his contract extension. So, so that's what happens. But I'm telling you, Joe Brady is a name to listen for.
Okay.
He's not their first choice, but he is on their list, their watch list. Now, it'd be hard for Joe Brady to leave Josh Allen in Buffalo, because he feel like they may have a shot to win a Super Bowl at some point. But money do talk sometimes. And he's been in LSU. He was the offensive coordinator the year they won a national championship with Joe Burrow.
Right.
And there may be an opportunity for him to come back to LSU if they can't hit on Lane. Lane is their top target. So is Florida, their top target.
Do you think that's warranted?
And I think LSU makes a call again to Marcus Freeman. I think I
love that.
I think they make a call to Marcus Freeman. I honestly do. So those are my top two candidates, with Joe Brady being the odd man, but could get it.
I would love to see Marcus Freeman at LSU. Obviously, his name has been thrown around for Penn State and Florida as well. There is debate. Why would he leave Notre Dame and the situation that he's in there? I think if you're these other programs, you are pissed that LSU just did this, because LSU is one of the better options. I would think the LSU job is a better job than Florida, but I think it's also dependent on what your priority is. Like if you're looking to just go get your championship, like if I'm Lane Kiffin, if that's my priority, I think LSU is the better option. If you're just looking for the resources and the splash and whatever, then I think Florida. And I think you could eventually win a championship there. It may just take more time. But I would love Marcus Freeman at LSU. I also, again, this is taking away he ain't leaving, whatever. We're just hypothetically here. I would like Dan Lanning back. I would like him in the SEC. I think he could do a really good job at LSU or Florida, honestly. Would he leave Oregon? I'm inclined to think nah, but I'm making the calls if I'm either of these programs to him and just gauging that interest. I think him and Marcus Freeman could both be really, really impactful in the SEC.
Probably, yeah. No, I was just gonna say they probably want someone too with a Southern background, just because you want someone to relate to Louisiana. Louisiana, they don't compete with any other school in their state for players. Think about it.
Totally.
Auburn has Alabama. Ole Miss and Mississippi State is in the state of Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like Texas, you got Texas A&M. You know, like you got these other schools in other states. They have to compete against the next big person. LSU is the lone big dog in that state.
Right.
And I don't see them getting Tulane's coach. I think he's a great coach, but I don't see them getting him because they look at them as their little brother, right? So they're like, why we go hire our little brother coach to come to LSU? That's how LSU thinks.
Yeah.
So they're going to swing for the fences. I like what you said about Dan Lanning. That's a name to be watched out for.
I would love that. Dan Lanning at LSU, Marcus Freeman at Florida. Let's get them both in the SEC. But I did want to ask you about the Lane Kiffin conversation because he is the top name on all of these lists. The money that is going to be thrown at him to get him to leave Oxford, if he ultimately does, is wild. And it does beg the question, is that warranted? Because like Brian Kelly, he's yet to win a championship. He's yet to get the big dogs in the SEC. He plays Kirby. What is making everyone so certain that it would be deserving of literally every dollar that you've got in Baton Rouge? I'm just asking the question. I'm not saying it's an incorrect approach, but it is interesting. He's dropping the big games. He just lost to Georgia. Why are we convinced that he's going to get it done somewhere else?
Because people are looking at what he did at Ole Miss consistently. You know, like he didn't just go there and have one winning great year. Like he put a couple of great years back to back, right?
Sure.
But I'm like you though, like he was 0-6 against, you know, ranked teams in the SEC, I think, going into last week's game. You know, like he wins the ones at home. He wins the ones at home, but he hasn't won the ones on the road until last week when they was able to beat Oklahoma. And I think it's also the fact that he develops quarterbacks, right? Everyone wants to have a solid quarterback, and he consistently has solid quarterbacks. He consistently has a high-ranked offense. You saw what he did at Alabama as offensive coordinator. You see what he's doing at Ole Miss as the head coach and calling the plays. And I think it becomes offense sells tickets. Offense looks glamorous, right? Defense wins championships. Right. Their struggle has always been defensive. Last year, they had a really good defense. This year, their defense is subpar, but they're still finding a way to win games. But I think it's the epitome of Lane of understanding that wherever we are right now, he's going to make us that much better, is what they're saying, because they feel like he can get more talent based off the fan base as far as like resources, right? You know, like there won't be
getting talent has never been their problem. They had the number one ranked transfer portal class. It's what you do with them once they're there.
Right. So I think I'm like you, like to warrant too much money, I'll be careful.
Yes.
But right now he's already at 13 and a half that they offered him from Florida. Like, so if LSU comes, they're gonna offer him 15. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about for a guy who won a championship as a head coach. He's won a championship as a coordinator, but not a head coach. Like, I'm like you, that is a lot, you know, but he can relate to LSU. He can relate to Florida kids because he's been in the conference a long time. And I think that's why he would be successful at either one of those guys. But there's a large chance that he stays at LSU. I mean, it stays at Ole Miss.
I know.
Like, his son is a quarterback at Oxford High School. I'm not sure if he's a junior senior, but there's a large chance he stay because why? The field could be named after him in a couple of years if he keeps winning the way he's winning.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter. It's like you said earlier. Sometimes it's not just about the coach. The wife got to say so too. Where does the wife want to live? Because their kids is almost out of high school. Like
Yeah, they're not married though.
they're getting back together, right? Or they're back together. So they say they're back
I
together.
have no idea.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of reporting I do, but I do know that he's not married.
What is that? We don't know. But there's been
There
reports that they're leaning towards back together.
Your
So, but
point is there are personal elements that play into the decision. And when you have school age children, that's a totally different, it's interesting timing too. This past weekend, my game was South Florida at Memphis. Both of those coaches are on lists for openings. Alex Golish at South Florida is going to be a Power Four head coach, and Ryan Silverfield probably will as well. And Alex Golish was talking to us about it very openly and honestly, not about any specific job. He said that he is not looking for anything else. That's not, but we did ask the question, like, how do you handle it when these conversations are being thrown at you? You're asked about it in press conferences. He said, the only people I care about it affecting are my players and my family. And when they decided to go to Tampa for the South Florida job, because he was the coordinator at Tennessee, he and his wife had a conversation because his daughter was in middle school. And his wife was like, I need you to keep your daughter in mind in this, because her changing schools and friend groups in middle school can be very challenging for a girl. And like those elements you really do have to think about. And so, yeah, a son that is, pursuing college ball and all of those things. So as much as everyone thinks it's very clear what Lane is going to do, there are a lot of decisions that go into it. Also, Nick Saban being thrown around, I really don't think he's going back. That's just my gut feeling. Miss Terry jokes that money talks, but he seems so happy what he's
he's making
doing
more
right
money.
now. And yeah, it's crazy. And to just like go out the way he did and always be the GOAT, like I just don't really get that. The Urban Meyer conversation is interesting to me, but I don't really see that either. I hear you about the Southern background, though I don't think it's an absolute necessity. I mean, Nick Saban was from West Virginia. It's not like he was from the Southeast. Like, I think you just have to have a willingness to acclimate and be a part of it and not think that you're above it, even if you're not from there. So if it is a Dan Lanning, who I don't actually know where Dan Lanning is from, but he spent time at Georgia. And so I think that as long as you immerse yourself and you realize that this is one of the most prideful universities. I'm not just talking football programs, y'all. I've been in Omaha for the College World Series when LSU wasn't in it and they're tailgating. Like, these people love LSU. And if you act like you're superior to that concept, you won't thrive there. So I think that that's more impactful, someone that's going to throw themselves into the culture, not necessarily having been from it.
I do have one name that could be thrown out there. Not sure he will leave because
Okay.
there's 3 names, right, that are tied to the universities. Brent Key at Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Why would Brent Key leave Georgia Tech? His alma mater, he got amazing support there, right? Clark Lee at Vanderbilt, another.
That one is interesting to me.
His alma mater got a lot of support there. Jeff Brom, Louisville. You saw
Alma mater.
Louisville and beat Miami. You don't think he's a hot commodity as well? And
Yeah.
he'll get some noise. John Franklin is out there now. And there's
Who?
Franklin, the coach at Penn State. What's his first name?
James.
So I get John from it. I know it's a J. James Franklin. Gosh, Franklin.
Keep up, everybody.
Right. James Franklin is out there. And James Franklin knows how to win. And you heard him say he wants to compete for a championship. When he did that interview on College Game Day, it was an interview to all the ADs everywhere. Because he wants to position himself to be in a team in a conference to have a chance to win a championship. If you don't think he's plugging it, hoping to try to get this shot at this job, that's another name. But the other 3 guys, alma mater, it's hard to pull them away. Really good guys. I don't think they leave the alma mater, but be on the lookout for James Franklin. If Florida can't get Kiffin, Franklin may end up there, or Eli
Drinkwitz, I also don't get that one. I do not see him at either of the SEC programs that are currently open. Now, if more happen, if a Kentucky decides to make a move, if Auburn makes a move, then he's higher on the list. I think he is where he should be at Missouri. That's just my personal read on things, but I don't see him at Florida or LSU specifically. I see James Franklin more at Florida than I do LSU, but I agree with you. I certainly I have James Franklin high on my list if I'm an AD. Now, the other side of this, and we really got to move on to week 10 previews here, but is Brian Kelly done, or do you think he will pop up somewhere else? I this one feels a bit more like, not only were you not producing, I feel like your reputation was tarnished a little bit with this one.
The competitive side of him, I say no, he's not done coaching because
He don't want to go out that way.
Yeah, he don't want to be known as, oh, I took 53 million and went home. Like, he wants to go and show people that no, he can really, really coach. So I see him at probably taking one of these other jobs, maybe Virginia Tech, maybe I heard he was in the running for Penn State job at first, but probably not now because
That's
it wouldn't
my
be
point. Yeah.
but depending on what the domino effect happens, right? Like, he may end up somewhere. Jimbo Fisher trying to get back into coaching, right? He didn't want to go out was getting 70 million and people just saying, oh, you just took the money. Well, like, he's trying to get back into coaching. So there's going to be some coaches that get hired at certain places that are going to be some great coaches. But then there's going to be some people that's going to have to take some chances at new first-time head coaches.
Yeah.
And you have to give someone a shot at becoming a first-time head coach.
Here's what I don't know that it would happen, but it would be on my mind if I were in these chairs. If I'm UNC, this expedites my separation from Bill Belichick, and I try and go get Brian Kelly. I think that UNC has decided they want to really invest in football. They thought they were doing it with the splash hire of Bill Belichick. Football business, very structured, is going to bring a seriousness back to UNC football. Boy, did that backfire. Am I right? I mean, no one's taking them seriously given the situation, and I don't see things getting better with more time, please. Brian Kelly kind of fits the mold of what they thought they were getting in Bill Belichick's hire. So I think if I'm in Chapel Hill, my wheels are turning a little bit of we could start contesting with a Brian Kelly that probably wouldn't have given us. I don't think Brian Kelly would have tried to go to Chapel Hill, but given how all of this transpired, I agree with you. I don't know that Penn State's calling him anymore. No one in the SEC is going to. So the dominoes kind of fall in the perfect way, timing-wise, that Brian Kelly would consider a UNC. He probably could win pretty quickly in the ACC and regain his reputation as a winner. And UNC gets that strict business football guy that they thought they were getting in Belichick.
Yeah, Belichick, I think he wants out, but he doesn't want to tarnish his legacy by saying he was done after 1 year. So it's going to have to be a school decision to say they want to move off, and they have to negotiate his buyout down if they're going to do something that quickly. Another name, and then, like I said, we'll move on. Another name that a lot of people are not talking about that could be looking, to make just re-energize himself because he's a solid coach, to me, is my guy at Clemson, Dabo. Maybe Dabo is looking to re-energize himself somewhere else outside of Clemson this year. And it's very quiet, but that's typically when someone decides to make a move somewhere. So Dabo could be a name to look out for. He's a solid coach, and just probably won't try something new somewhere else. You heard him rant about it earlier this year.
Yeah, I would be so curious. If any of our listeners are LSU or Florida fans, please comment how you would feel about a Dabo hire. That's my curiosity. How would he be received in the SEC? Because I think at one point the perception of Dabo was as one of the best coaches. It's kind of gone down a little bit. I don't know that the same notoriety exists with him, not discrediting what he has done, but there have been so many others that have risen, like the Marcus Freemans and Dan Lannings of the coaching world, that I do wonder if a Florida and LSU would actually be happy about that. Now, I think a Kentucky would love a Dabo Swinney hire. Like, I think there are some. If
Yeah, it would have to
no,
be
I don't think he would either. I am curious about that. How that would be received by those places.
Mm.
It's a good point though, because I think he's definitely probably more willing to leave Clemson now than he has been in the past several years, but also would be a really bad taste in your mouth to leave on a year like this. So, y'all, it's chaos. Your guess is as good as ours, though I do think we have some pretty good guesses, I have to say. But we will see how all of this shapes out. It is definitely going to be interesting because whoever fills these places, their roles then become vacant. I mean, Missouri could be looking for a new head coach. Ole Miss could be looking for a new head coach. Like, it's going to be a very different landscape next year in terms of who's in head coach roles.